can't succeed if you don't try. Let the fire, let the fire. There lies the promise left with fire. I want to welcome Rabbi David Burstein. It's delightful that he has been sharing these high holidays of Rosh Hashanah and again with us for Yom Kippur, and that he is part of our rabbinic team here at Congregation Bethadam. And together we've been able to explore this very new world of creating high holidays online via Zoom. So David, how are you doing this day?
I'm doing good, thank you, Rabbi Barr. I'm doing great, coming from my basement, and want to wish everybody a great season. And it's been exciting just to participate with some really special people on these services.
Right, and then the Weisses. We want to welcome all of them, Melissa, Maddie, and Charlotte. I think I'm going to say your names again. That way people know which one I'm talking about. Melissa, raise your hand, and Maddie, and Charlotte. And we were so pleased. Now, I'm assuming that you read all the books that are behind the three of you. And so we're going to give a test.
Oh, dear.
So thank you for letting us into your house. It's really very sweet that you invited us into your house and let us participate, to help participate in our high holidays, but to create a sense of community and family that we'd all be together, even though we're all separated by distance in this time. So thanks so much.
Thank you. We were really honored to be asked, and we're really happy to be part of this community. So thank you.
Thanks. And then Mike Pittenger, who many of our students know, many of our adults don't know you as well as our students, because you have been working with our pre-K kids for, I think, since I was a child, perhaps. I'm a bit older, but thank you, Mike, for participating in Yom Kippur and being here with us this morning.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for asking me to do it. It's an honor.
Well, we appreciate it. And we appreciate Joey, who's here too. Joey's been mostly in the background, making sure that we do our jobs correctly. And I'm delighted that you're joining us for this Yom Kippur morning, that we can share this time together.
Each morning, we are confronted with the most common and most profound of miracles. We awaken with a fresh quota of time. 24 hours is always our allotment. No one can take time away from us, and no one receives any more or less. Time cannot be bought. Our awakening should become a personal contract. It is a time for projects, resolutions, for the birth of action. Yet there are many of us who are always waiting to live. We are waiting until things change, until there is more time, until we settle down, until we get our work done, until. Some of us are desperate for the will to proceed.
The water of time moves on with or without our control. Whether to drift passively with the current or to direct our course, that is the choice presented with every tick of the clock. Morning, this morning, brings with it a promise of a new day, the opportunity that yesterday's intentions may be fulfilled.
Morning also serves to remind us that another day is gone. Yesterday's acts and omissions are forever. They can never be entirely reclaimed. 10 days ago on Rosh Hashanah, we began our journey through this treasured period of reflection and challenge. We committed ourselves by saying, during the remaining high holiday services, may we examine the paths we have walked so that we can plan a course for the coming year.
Now that we approach the conclusion of this journey, we ask ourselves how well we honored that commitment. Have we engaged in a searching self-examination? Or as those words passed from our lips on Rosh Hashanah, did they also pass from our minds? The gift of our tradition is a time of year set apart to reconcile our values with our actions. The blessing of each new day is the opportunity to change.
Ma tovu alecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu עליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל. Yai da 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 da.
Like a blank page staring out at us, Yom Kippur urges us to fill the space. We record our deeds of the past year. We remember with honesty our joys and sorrows, our victories and defeats, our glories and our shame. It is only through remembrance, uncolored by protective fantasy, unshaded by what we wish had taken place, that we can assess the truths of our existence.
It is through memory, allowing ourselves to feel the pain and the pleasure of the past, that we can chart a course for the future. We use this moment to fill our blank page with honest reflection, with solemn introspection. We know that what we discover can guide our actions in the coming year, so that we will live our lives in harmony with the values we cherish. Yom Kippur is a day of honesty. We have acted against life both willingly and unwillingly, both knowingly and unknowingly.
We have acted against life when we block our ears to the cries of the hungry. We have denied the best within us when we allow our comfort to insulate us from the plight of the dispossessed.
We have acted against life when we silence our tongues in the presence of wrongdoing. We have denied the best within us when we give in to the excuse that our voice is insignificant.
We are sorry for our actions.
We have acted against life when we allow the moments to tick by without challenging ourselves. We have denied the best within us when we accept mediocrity and fail to test our limits.
We have acted against life when we let pain and illness blind us to beauty. We have denied the best within us when we have enjoyed the seduction of self-pity.
We are sorry for our actions. We have acted against life when we succumb to the intoxication of ambition at the expense of our family. We have denied the best within us when we are too busy to spend time with those we love.
We have acted against life when we worry about the future, regret the past, and ignore the present. We have denied the best within us when we have grown too old for child's play.
We act against life at this moment if we let this opportunity for self-examination drift by due to complacency or fear. We deny the best within us when, knowing our principles, we choose not to act upon them.
We are sorry for our actions.
We have transgressed against life when year after year we mouth the words of these services, never turning our words into action.
On Yom Kippur, we recall not only what has been, but we imagine what might be. We hold before our eyes a vision of better self, a more perfect world. Living within our minds and hearts are the ideals which challenge the reality we now experience. Knowing that we do not live up to our noblest expectations, we may become frustrated and disillusioned. We judge ourselves harshly because we do not fully attain all that we envision.
But our vision of a nobler, more ethical self serves to prod us to action, provides us a goal, though we recognize our reach is too short. We can dream of perfection, though we know it will forever remain a dream. We accept our limits, even as we continue to envision what might be. We pledge ourselves to stretch our reach, though we know it will forever fall short. Rather than becoming disheartened, we are invigorated by the challenge.
דרכי נועם וטול נתיבותיה shalom.
So in a moment, David, you're going to be reading our Torah portion that you selected for Yom Kippur. And if we were in the sanctuary, we would have the congregation rise and we walk and we would take our Torah out of the ark. But we're not going to be doing that this year. You're going to be reading from a text, and our Torah will be sitting in the ark. Well, I thought it would be important just for a moment to chat about Bethadam's Torah. We were fortunate to have been given this Torah. It is part of a collection of 1,600 plus Torahs that are known as either Holocaust Torahs or Memorial Trust Torahs. They were the Torahs that were in Prague, and then after World War II, philanthropists from London went to the government and said, we will purchase them from you. And they were brought to the Westminster Synagogue. And there they made this incredible decision what to do with them. And they decided to allow congregations to take them on permanent loan. It's ours, but if the communities in Eastern Europe were to come back together, we would return the Torah. When you look at this Torah that's anywhere, because there's sections of Torah. So some of them are 120, 130, 140 years old. And this Torah is a remnant of this dark time in human history. How does it feel to know that that's the Torah that we interact with at Congregation Bethadam?
I mean, I love reading out of that Torah. For just the reasons that you shared, is it is our history. I mean, it's living history. I mean, it's the historical nature, the myth of the stories, but it's every person that has read this Torah is standing up there with you. And that to me is such a powerful image. And especially in a place where many of the Jews were killed, that this Torah survived. And it survived in a way where it was honored and it was given as a trust. I like reading Torah in general, but I like reading it out of the Torah because of the feeling of it. I'll miss that this year.
And it speaks to resiliency.
Yeah.
You know, that clearly we know the story of the Holocaust. We don't need to repeat every aspect. We know the 6 million Jews and 5 million other innocents. And though there were survivors. And this Torah is sort of symbolic of that. And that's been throughout Jewish history and human history. There have been dark, dark times that I'm sure when people are living through them, they couldn't imagine life on the other side. And yet this Torah is symbolic of that there is another side, that not all may get through the darkest of times, but there is that ability to do that. And so when I hold the Torah and I hold it up and I talk to bar and bat mitzvah students, it's about the past, it's about the present, but it's also about the future, that we're not sure necessarily what's around the corner. We can plan, we can work, we can do all kinds of things, but we're not always sure. But this Torah says there is continuity. There are links in the ongoing chain of Jewish history. And for me, when we read from the Torah, it speaks to that. It speaks to the power of survival and the power of possibilities and the power of getting through the darkness and seeing the dawn of a different day.
Moses was tired. Each step carried the weight of a life on the run. 40 years in the desert had taken its toll, and now it was time to address the people one last time. He watched as they gathered below him in an open plain, and his eyes scanned the horizon. He felt a twinge of gratitude to this true tapestry of a people. Young and old, strong and weak, man, woman, and child, they were all here. In Deuteronomy 29, verses 9 and 10, it says, Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem, lifnei Adonai Elohechem, Roshechem, Shivtechem, Ziknechem v'shitrechem, kol ish Yisrael. You stand this day, all of you, before your God, your tribal heads, your elders, your leaders, your officials, all the people of Israel, your children, your wives, even the stranger within your camp, from the wood chopper to the water drawer or water carrier. In the portion Nitzavim sits this timely section of the book of Deuteronomy. It arrives as Moses is giving his final advice to the Israelites. The legend tells us they wait on the edge of entering the land of Canaan, the promised land. It's a Moses drop the mic moment, where finally these challenging and feisty Jews are listening to him with bated breath. It's a moment of leadership that is the culmination of Moses' legend. You would think he would pack the stage with dignitaries like Joshua and all the celebrities of the time. And although Moses acknowledges them, he also spends time acknowledging the less celebrated, the wood choppers and the water drawers. Why would he do this? They aren't that important, right? They don't have the names in the legends, yet Moses realizes that is just why they are important, because it is the unknowns who really run the tribes, the ones who gather the wood for the fires that warm the Israelites at night and draw the water to keep them hydrated and alive in the desert. They are needed and they are essential. Atem nitzavim kolchem. Lifnei Adonai Elohechem. You stand this day, all of you, before your God, your tribal heads, your elders, your officials, your leaders, all the people of Israel, your children, your wives, even the stranger within your camp, from wood chopper to water drawer. Now, the truth is, the wood chopper and the water carrier probably have names even if the Torah chooses not to mention them. They always do. We often just don't learn them. In our modern time, where politicians survive and thrive with just name recognition and celebrity, it is the wood choppers and the water drawers whose lives truly matter. Former CEO of Charles Schwab, Walter Bettinger, shares a story from his business school days. He says, a business strategy course in my senior year stands out. I had maintained a 4.0 average all the way through, and I wanted to graduate with a perfect average. It came down to the final exam, and I had spent many hours studying and memorizing formulas to do calculations for the case studies. The teacher hands out the final exam, and it was on one piece of paper, which kind of surprised me because I figured it would be longer than that for a final. And once everyone had their paper, the teacher said, go ahead and turn it over. And both sides were blank. Everybody took a step back and sat back and said, what's going on? And the professor said, I've taught you everything I can teach you about business in the last 10 weeks. But the most important message, the most important question is this. What's the name of the woman who cleans this building? We all sat there. That moment had a very powerful impact on Schwab. He says it was the only test I've ever failed, and I got the F I deserved. Her name was Dottie, and I didn't know Dottie. I'd seen her, but I had never taken the time to ask her name. And Schwab ends by saying, I've tried to know every Dottie I've worked with ever since. Do you know the name of the essential workers, the wood choppers and the water drawers, who have helped you during the past 6 months? The checkout clerk at Kroger's who rang up your food, or the DoorDash driver, or the Amazon delivery person, the pharmacist tech in the drive-up window at Walgreens, the ER nurse who took care of your mother at the hospital, maybe the city worker who wipes down the crossing walk buttons on your walk. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic has vividly highlighted how much our society depends upon essential workers, all of them. Praise for the heroic work being done by healthcare workers to save lives worldwide in dangerous, exhausting conditions is everywhere on the news. It's everywhere you look. But those same workers are often left unprotected by governments and systems that have failed to supply them with enough personal protective equipment, PPEs, or supplies or resources to do their jobs. The truth is, essential work extends way beyond healthcare. Although some people have been able to shift their jobs to their homes, Millions of workers have jobs that cannot be done at home. Not only custodial staff and orderlies at those same hospitals, but also teachers or childcare workers or grocery clerks or supermarket workers or delivery people, factory and farm workers and restaurant staff, often without adequate PPE or adequate sick leave or adequate paid leave. These people leave their homes to help maintain a semblance of normalcy for others, at great risk to themselves and their families. Last 6 months, we've come to realize that this country was not only built on the backs of blue-collar workers, but still exists because of them. I and many of my friends were lucky to have jobs that allowed us to work at home and have regular salaries and stability. And a vast majority of these wood choppers and water drawers didn't have such privilege. In my little town of Wyoming, people would often talk about the inability to have a normal life, that their kids were bored and the pool was closed and that the pickup grocery lines were long. Meanwhile, I watched a young Kroger checkout clerk in the early days of the pandemic break down in tears that she had to work back-to-back 12-hour shifts, and someone had yelled at her because there wasn't enough of the good kind of toilet paper. Her name is Laura. It always greeted me with a smile and a hello. Perhaps what Moses is telling the Israelites was that every life mattered and should be respected, especially those who make the community run. And their sacrifice is real, and the pandemic has devoured them fully. No choices, no halfways, and for many, it's not about the prestige or a title. It's about a commitment to an everyday job that humanity needs to run. It's a story of a chicken and a cow. They were walking down the street when they passed a billboard advertising daily specials at a local restaurant. In bold type, the sign announced 2 eggs, any style, only $1.99. Beneath this, in different colored letters, was the message, steak, plus 2 sides, dishes, only $10.95. The chicken said to the cow, "Look at that, isn't that something?" There are 2 simple lines as our contribution to civilization. I provide the breakfast. You provide the dinner. What would humanity do without us? Replied the cow, "For you, my friend, it's a contribution. For me, it's a total commitment." You stand this day, all of you, before your God, your tribal heads, your elders, your leaders, your officials, all the people of Israel, your children, your wives, even the stranger within your camp, from wood chopper to water drawer. Moses, on the biggest stage of his life, in his biggest speech, mentions all people. And perhaps that was a last-ditch effort before Canaan to tell people who had been born of menial labor and slavery not to get caught up in a title and remember where you came from. But it was a really great reminder of what really matters in life, and that you should never lose sight of the people who do the real work. In less than 10 weeks, we will be choosing our next president. Will we choose a leader like Moses, who saw that all of us are essential and deserve to be treated as such? From the hewer of your wood to the drawer of your water. Everybody present, everybody equal. This should be the motto for our leadership. The leaders should never feel they're on a higher level than the people whom they serve, because without the people who selected them as leaders, they would be no more distinguished than the common person. No leader should ever look down upon a person, because ultimately the leader is responsible for the development of the people they serve. If the people do not ascend, it is because the leader is a poor leader. And our leaders have enormous responsibility, especially in this country. And that's why they've been selected for this position. And if leaders fail in their charge, if they do not succeed in elevating their community, both spiritually and morally, they not only do not deserve the position, they are actually depriving the community of their due. They should take a lesson from the woodcutter and the water drawer, from the legend of Moses. Everyone is valued, and without even one person, the community is so not whole. So on November 3rd, please vote. This is not only for you and your family, but for the ones who chop our wood and carry our water. For Dottie, for Laura and the thousands of those whose voices need to be heard and names known. Shana Tova. Happy New Year.
The ways of our ancestors shed light upon the present. Rooted in tradition, we feel joined, an inseparable part of the human experience. But unchallenged conventions can also lead us into the shadows of dogma, occupying us with distant memories, while the present goes unnoticed and the future sits bound and blindfolded. We cannot stay immersed in our past without losing the way.
In each generation, our survival depends on the creative gifts of sensitive children who know they will someday be ancestors. Unshackled and with eyes open to all possibilities, we accept the challenge to create our own future. We must find our own way. We sift from our past that which is most vital for growth.
We shake loose and discard the time-worn judgments and ill-fitting customs. We keep alive the distilled essence, the fundamental truths of our collective experience. We respect the sage, reward the inventor, and embrace the poet. We decide our own precarious path. With every step, we have a choice. In every act, we choose alone.
"19 years ago, we joined together for high holiday services, stunned and shaken. Our nation had just experienced the worst terrorist attack on its soil it had ever known. 2 commercial jets were flown into the Twin Towers in New York City. A third was crashed into the Pentagon. And a fourth never reached its intent target because the passengers on that plane overtook the hijackers. On that fateful day, approximately 3,000 people were killed. Fear and uncertainty gripped us because we didn't know what the future held. We wondered if there were going to be more attacks. We were concerned about our safety, the safety of our loved ones, the safety of our nation. And now, 19 years later, we gather again on these high holidays with fear and uncertainty once more our companions. And while our reactions may be similar, the source of our concern is different. 9/11 was carried out by people with a political agenda, ideological aims. They wanted to harm our nation. They wanted to stoke fear and change our way of life, just to stir terror in our hearts. This time, the source of our anxiety is very different. This virus that holds us and the rest of the world in its grip doesn't have an agenda. It has no purpose. It's not political. It's not ideological. It's not even aware of itself. It just simply is. It moves from host to host in an unending, unconscious search for its own survival. COVID is a natural event. It simply moves along like other natural events, like tornadoes or hurricanes or earthquakes or wildfires, unaware of the pain it causes or the devastation that it leaves in its wake. And yet, there are those who would prefer to believe that COVID is not a mindless event, but an intentional one, spawned either as a result of human action or even divine judgment. It seems for many, attributing motivation to the disease that has killed tens of thousands of people and caused millions more to be ill is easier than accepting that nature doesn't care about us. Thus, we have those who are promoting conspiracy theories about the virus, that it was engineered in a lab or that wealthy elites are spreading it to gain power and profit. And there are those who believe that it's a message from God, his wrath, as does the minister who leads a weekly Bible study for members of the Trump cabinet. He suggests that this is God's wrath for those who have, quote, a proclivity towards lesbianism and homosexuality, unquote. And he also suggests it's a result of environmentalists and those who deny the existence of God. And of course, unfortunately, there are those who are blaming the Jewish people for this outbreak. It always seems that there are people who are looking for intent, whether it's conspiracy theory or religious leaders wanting to see God in everything, or anti-Semites. It seems to me that for many, it's assuring to see a mysterious hand behind an event, particularly one as large and as devastating as COVID, rather than accepting that nature is simply doing what nature does. For many, a scientific approach to understanding our universe, our earth, how human beings evolved, it's foreign to them. Accepting that nature is neither self-aware or aware of us is disconcerting. Acknowledging that over nature that we have no control is disquieting. Natural events follow the rules of nature, unaware of us, uncaring. Nature doesn't see borders. It doesn't see gender. It doesn't see ethnicity or color of skin, nor place of birth, nor religion. We can't manipulate nature through bargaining or prayer or political mandate or military action. But it needs to be acknowledged that not all natural events are the same. There are those that exist fully independent from anything we do as human beings, such as earthquakes or tsunamis. We may be able to predict when they're going to occur, but we're powerless to spot them. All we can do is urge people to get out of the way, and then after the event occurs, we come in to offer aid, to care for the wounded, to repair the damage. And when such events occur, we are reminded of the force of nature, how powerful it is, its ability to destroy in moments what it took years for human beings to build. But there are other natural events which we do play a role in, even if we've never intended to be players, and even when we fail to acknowledge our role. It's been suggested that COVID, like some other viruses, jump from animals to human beings, likely because we've moved into their environment that's getting closer to the wildlife while displacing them from their natural habitat. Thus, our use of land, or perhaps our misuse of land, has unintended results. But once set in motion, it can't be turned back. But we always have a choice how to proceed. Think too of climate change and how our use of fossil fuels is altering our planet. While there are those who want to posit that climate change talk is just political, the fact is, NASA found that this past decade was the hottest one ever recorded. And the intensification of storms that we're seeing, it's not liberal or conservative, it's the result of climate change. And ignoring the science is never, ever the answer. And while we as lay people may not fully understand the science, and while the science behind climate change may be more nuanced, it's fully understood at this time, it doesn't undermine the overwhelming evidence that exists. Climate change is real and altering our planet. And those plastics that litter our oceans, they didn't magically appear. We produced it, we used it, we discarded it, and we had no thought of where it went or the damage it might cause. It strikes me as strange that there are those who look for a divine hand in history and current events, and there are others who look for conspiracies to explain what happens, both preferring to deny the evidence and the data that shows that we human beings, even unintentionally, have impacted nature and how it unfolds around us. Too often, we claim that our actions do not matter, that I'm one person. What difference will it make? And the answer is, to some degree, you're right. One person's actions alone against a sea of other actions has little chance of stemming the tide. But when we as human beings combined our actions, When we take small steps together, our actions amplify one another. And together, those individual acts make a difference. We're suffering under the weight of a pandemic that has trapped us in our homes. And this year, our services necessarily had to be online to avoid transmitting or contracting a disease that circles the globe. Last night, as a result of this, Terry chanted the Kol Nidre from behind where I'm sitting. And I'm hoping that next year, we won't be repeating this, what we've done this year. But there's no guarantee that this will not be the case. COVID is not magically going to go away. It won't simply disappear if it never existed. I raise the possibility that next year we might find ourselves in the very same position we're in right now. Not to frighten anyone, not to depress anyone, not on our overabundance of pessimism, but based on reality. If we don't act, if we don't plan, if we ignore the data, the problem will persist. Kol Nidre reminds us that what matters most is not what we've done, but rather what we're going to do. That's why it says in the text of Kol Nidre that we would be released from our vows and oaths between this Yom Kippur and the next, if after honest effort we don't fulfill them. From this Yom Kippur to the next, Kol Nidre is forward-looking. It reminds us it's the future that is important. For me, this year, those words are particularly meaningful. We need everyone to be engaged in the coming year. We need to recognize that all of our actions together, small actions, can and will change the world if we work together. We all bear responsibility to be involved, whether it's engaging in the democratic process, whether it's wearing masks or asking others to do so, whether it's getting the vaccine when it becomes available, when it's demanding from our leaders, political, religious, communal, to take actions to restore civility and ensure a more just society. Our future depends on the actions we take. And even though we're trapped in our homes, we must not be passive in the year to come. Kol Nidre is a call to action. We should heed its call. The future depends on it.
Courage is a rhythm, conviction wave. Deeds inspire, words give hope. The hardest act is to hold our gaze, to not turn away. When we choose to speak, when we move to defy, when we leave the protection of our thoughts, when we call others to take a stand, bearing witness, hearing injustice, feeling pain, voicing kindness, offering a hand. With these acts, we repair the world. Our impact remains after we are gone. The memories we create transcend our time. Even if we never see the ripple, even if we never feel the wake.
Yom Kippur is a day of personal memories. We remember ourselves as we once were. We push our way into the corners of our mind to uncover our youth. We allow ourselves to feel again the thrill of childhood delight, the excitement of discovery, the sense that we can conquer the world. Prodded by our intellect, we allow the sharpness of memories to flood our beings. We again feel the pain of adolescence, the uncertainties, the awkwardness, our struggle to emerge. We recall the excitement of first love, shared secrets between friends, taking pleasure in intellectual awakening. We remember the yesterdays of our adulthood with its disappointments, our disillusions, some moments of despair. Comforted by the presence of others, we allow the pain of our imperfections, our failures, our lost vision and wasted dreams to fill our souls.
We remember too the moments of triumph, of warm companionship, of laughter, and of love. We have enjoyed the sense of community, the closeness of sharing, the satisfactions of a job well done. With our friends and our loved ones, we allow ourselves to feel again the happiness we have known. We remember those who worked and struggled so that we would have the comforts of home. They shared their warmth and laughter, and we knew the meaning of joy. We can still see the familiar posture, hear the distinctive voice. We have known the uniqueness of one singular life. We recreate moments lost in time. We share in the feeling of loss. We miss the breath of their presence. We resolve today to cherish, preserve, and build upon those memories that strengthen our lives. In B'dei ha'mavet ha'koach la'akor ma shetamun balev. Death cannot take that which is locked in our hearts. With our tears and our sorrow, we remember. With our courage and our strength, we do not forget. Acts of kindness, deeds of courage will remain. Beauty created, wisdom shared is not lost.
With our tears and our sorrow, we remember.
Im damo be'einenu, be'ed avlenu, nishmor al zecher ahuvenu.
With our tears and our sorrow, we remember.
Zecher tzadik livracha. May the memory of good people bless our days. How easy it is to lose our way, to forget our purpose, to ignore that which we value most. Bumped and prodded by the demands of daily living, we often sacrifice what is dearest. During this hour of self-reflection, we challenge ourselves to recapture our sense of perspective. We strive to see ourselves with eyes unhampered by the urgency of daily life, as we struggle to regain our balance.
Buffeted by questions, hoping to awaken ourselves to those values we cherish, we know that our task is not easy. We accept that as we move from the luxury of this hour to the pressures of tomorrow, we will falter in our steps, act in ways we are likely to regret. We will not achieve perfection, but neither will we accept our failings.
We pledge to ourselves that we will face the dilemmas of tomorrow with dignity and integrity.
We will be honest with ourselves, acknowledging when we have fallen short, so that we do not mistake mediocrity for success.
We will remember what we value, so we do not extol the unimportant as the ultimate that can be achieved.
May it be a good year. May it be a healthy year. May it be a year of peace. And may we have the strength to make it so. Shana tova l'chol b'nei Yisrael u'l'chol b'nei Enosh. May it be a good year for all the people of Israel and all the people of this earth.
Shana tova.